And we are live. Happy Friday, everybody. Coming to you live from New Hampshire. And it is disgusting out here. I don't know about where you guys are, but it is raining and windy. My dog refuses to get up. But we have an awesome conversation for you guys today. Brian, you're also not too far. You're on the Maine New Hampshire border. How is it looking by you?
Well, it is similarly gray and rainy, although for me it's pretty warm in the 50s. But I have
Oh,
to tell you, maybe I'm a weirdo, but I'm kind of loving this weather right now. I'm like into the wet, gloomy rain thing right today.
stormy, moody. Well,
Mhm.
let's lift everyone's spirits with some SEO talk. So, speaking of weather, the reason I even bring it up is because if you were with us last week, New England had a wonderful late in the season storm, and where Brian is located, lost all kinds of power. So he was basically running off of someone biking his internet power. So we had to cut short early, and Brian is going to finish what he started last week. And the other great news is that he has so kindly written us a blog series, finalizing everything that he started to talk about and giving us a little bit more in depth and some examples. So that will go live next week, and that will be fabulous because some of these things I think are really tangible and you really need to see them. So, Brian, why don't you finish us off where we kind of left off last week? And then this week, we are going to dovetail into all types of reasons why SEO is for your industry, even if you think it's not. So, we're going to talk about the geography of SEO, brand versus generic search, kind of ultra niche type of SEO. But, Brian, why don't you take it off and I'll interrupt you when I have any questions.
All right, that sounds great. Thank you, Lauren. First of all, you did such a wonderful job last week. Died of sort of explaining some of these concepts that I wanted to talk about in terms of some really simple, practical SEO tactics you can use right now on your website, on your web pages, on your blog posts to improve your SEO. You did a great job covering things like
Oh my goodness, Brian, I hate to say this, but I think you are freezing again. So, um, Brian, you are freezing again. Goodness gracious. Now, can you? Okay, there you are. Are you able to turn your camera off?
yeah, I can.
Yeah, why don't you stop your camera? That usually helps.
Okay, let's
All
see
right,
if that helps. Um,
perfect.
so you did such a wonderful job last time talking about metadata. You were talking about putting keywords into your titles, putting keywords into your meta descriptions, into your headers. That was all fantastic, wonderful stuff. Um,
Woohoo.
so I'm going to pick it up from there with three more great places in your content to stick keywords. Not stuff, as you pointed out, but to place them naturally in a way that sounds good to you when you read it back. So the first
Exactly.
one, very, very important, internal links. Internal links are sort of the glue holding your various content all together on the web. It kind of helps to tell Google what your topics are, what your main topic is of your website, and how each of your pages relate to other pages. That's why internal links are so important for SEO. Um, so what you want to be doing is linking particular content to other content that is highly related to it. So blog posts on similar themes and similar topics. And also if you offer products or services that go with those topics, that is also a great internal linking opportunity. And then what you want to do is just kind of add a keyword, if you can, naturally into those links. What a lot of people do still is like they'll put a link that says like click here to X, and it doesn't tell Google anything when you write click here. It also doesn't tell the user anything. So what you want to do is put something like, let's say you're again, let's use the sneaker example. You're selling shoes on your website. You might want your anchor text to say something like, buy sneakers for 10% off or something like that, or learn more about Nikes or whatever. And not that we're being sponsored by Nike. But you get the idea where you want your anchor text to have these keywords in there. It tells your user what is behind that link, and it tells Google what is behind that link, which is the key for SEO here.
And so just so people know, so the anchor text is the front-facing text. When you hyperlink something, that is going to be that front-facing text that the user sees, and then it automatically like highlights in blue, usually is the auto color. And that shows people that it's a clickable link. Usually if you don't change the hyperlink, it'll usually just put the actual HTML link, but you want to change it to something like buy sneakers here instead of just click here, because how many click here's are on the internet? Billions. So trillions probably. You want to distinguish it. You want Google to know you're not just saying click here, you're saying click here for 10% off sneakers.
Exactly. Yes, that's exactly right, Lauren. All that is right. Sometimes it also automatically underlines or something like that for the anchor text. But
yes, exactly.
yeah, blue is the famous sign that you have a link there. Okay, so they're internal links when they link within your own website. They're external links when they link to somebody else's website. That is also great for SEO. But you want to be linking to the right websites, which are websites that are generally either topically related to you on the whole. So maybe it is a blog about sneakers and it's all about sneakers, and you're linking to a blog all about sneakers. Or maybe it's, a well-known newspaper or magazine, but they wrote an article about shoes, and you want to link to that particular article from this particular well-known publication or something like that. Definitely you want to be linking to other websites that are high quality, good websites. They don't have to necessarily be famous brands, but you want them to be as professional and well laid out and legitimate as you want your business to be perceived by Google. You don't want to be linking to spammy websites or, low kind of lower quality websites. You want to be linking to authoritative sources that you would trust and you would encourage your readers or your users to trust.
And that some people may have heard of this. So that's called backlinking, right?
Yes. Although usually when we talk about backlinks, we're usually talking about links coming into your website from another website.
Oh, okay.
In this case, we're talking about links going out. But yes, you are simply backlinking to them.
Yes. Okay.
Yes, that's
and now,
right.
So one question that I think comes up a lot is people always hear when they're making their website, don't send people off the website. So isn't that kind of counterintuitive to that advice to keep people on your website?
Yes, it is. So I'm just going to say it plainly. I hate that advice.
Okay, you heard it here.
I wasn't sure I was going to take a strong stand like that today, but I am. There are times where I would follow that rule. So for example, you're not worried about SEO and it's a landing page and it's a conversion landing page. And all you care about on that page is that your users are buying your thing, or they're downloading your white paper or whatever they're doing. That's an example where I'd say, yeah, you probably don't want to send users off that page.
Right.
Other than that, maybe also on your homepage, but even then, I don't. There may be times where you want to link to something else, that maybe you want to link to, maybe a famous newspaper published a glowing review of your service, your product. I don't have a problem with linking off a page there. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Most of the time, that is advice I would ignore. Again, I would not link to places where, you're getting a low quality experience where it's not a trustworthy website. But I think 9 times out of 10, unless it's a conversion situation where you have a specific landing page and you're not worried about SEO, linking out, sending your audience to other places is fine. If you're super worried about it, you can also do that trick where you have a link open in another tab. So, that way you're sort of sending them off, but you're sort of not.
Yeah, I think that's probably the advice and how I handle things when I am trying to send people off my site is I have them open another tab. This is great. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. What else we got?
Okay. All right. So last thing, let's talk about image alt text real quick.
Okay.
Image alt text is when you have an image. So Google, at least to date, doesn't have eyes and it doesn't have a human mind. So it can't see pretty pictures the way we can. So one thing that helps Google understand what your image is by using what's called alt text. It stands for alternative text. And it's a little piece of code you put in that is just, you write a description of your image. That's all it is. So for example, if it's a picture of a sneaker, you might just write blue woman sneaker or something like that. It just describes the image, but text is something that Google can read and understand. So now Google has an idea of what is actually contained in that image. So it knows what the topic is, what image searches it might want to show that image for, and how it relates to the rest of your content.
And when you say code, you don't mean that someone actually has to write like HTML code. It is truly just most websites, I would say most commercial websites like, Squarespace and Wix make it very clear where you have to enter that text, correct?
Yeah, same thing with WordPress. If you're using a WordPress site, they all make it really simple. It'll insert the description into the code for you, so you don't have to worry about it. You just write your description. It goes in the snippet of code that's called an alt tag. You don't have to worry about it. But the main takeaway here is it's another great place to stick a keyword if it makes sense. So in this example, if you have a sneaker, your page is about sneakers, and you have an image of a sneaker, now you're sticking the keyword sneaker or women's sneaker or blue women's sneaker into the tag. It's just one more reference point for Google to be like, oh, I should rank this for this keyword.
And is the alt text what shows up when somebody is blind and getting a description of the website? Is that good for accessibility, or is that something different?
100%. Yes, it is. That is another great reason to be doing this. Even if you're not at all worried about SEO, it's just a best practice for that reason. It's great for accessibility. People with low vision that can't see your image, they'll have their text reader say it to them based on your description, and they'll know what that image is about. So yes, 100%.
Awesome. See, I feel like I could just do SEO. I know it all. Oh, no, I'm just kidding, guys.
You can, Lauren. Yeah.
Well, you know what? It does. I do mention that for one reason, because I didn't start knowing too much about SEO at all, but I learned, Brian taught me, I read websites. Neil Patel is a great one. He's really helpful. A couple other kind of social media type of websites. And I really was able to learn, and I'm not a super tech person. So just going to say that it's not as hard as you think. And I think that's one confusion that we get a lot is like, oh my God, SEO. So I think that's a good segue to kind of, visual impairment is the reason I thought alt text existed. I didn't even realize there was an SEO component. Exactly. So there we go. We are helping with accessibility and SEO with that alt text. So that's cool. But this is a good segue to what we wanted to talk about today, which is why SEO is important for every industry and why I really wanted to teach myself because in the beginning, you know, I thought, oh, like a lot of the companies I work with aren't trying to be searched. You know, they're biotech companies that are really just putting their information out there for investors. And but that's not true. You know, even if you don't have a direct goal of being searched like a sneaker company, there's still a lot of importance behind SEO. And I learned that firsthand, so you can too. But we are going to kickstart your SEO career a little bit today. So, Brian, why don't you start with the question we got last week about ultra niche SEO, and then kind of dovetail into some of the other topics we were going to discuss today?
Yeah, that's a great segue. Thanks, Lauren. I firmly believe that every business and every business person can use SEO to their benefit, whether that is building your brand on Google or it's about finding your audience through other searches that are unrelated to your brand, that they may lead them to discover your business or your brand. There's always a good reason to be thinking about SEO and thinking about Google. Ultra niche is an interesting category of SEO because, on the one hand, very few people are probably searching for the specific terms you have in mind. That said, people who are searching for those terms are probably looking for you or somebody just like you, which means if they find you, they're going to have a real high chance of taking whatever action it is that you want them to take, whether that is anything from reading your annual report for financial information, whether it is learning about your service, whether it's about donating to something, whether it's just becoming familiar with you and your brand and your name. There are always going to be reasons for people to take those actions, and the more niche your service or your product or your business or your charity or whatever it is, the more likely that your audience, your searchers, are going to be to convert. Because think about it, when you know, there are going to be a lot of people out there who are, you know, Googling sneaker, right? And like, you know, maybe 99% of them are not going to buy the first time that they come to your website and they find your website and they've never heard of your store before. There's a million reasons. They might go to the mall. They might go to a bigger competitor there, you know, but if you're in a real niche, it's a real good opportunity to capture your very specific audience. Another thing,
so helpful.
Another thing is that it can become a great branding opportunity. So if you have a logo, a tagline, or a description of your business that other people aren't using, and you start building your business around it, ultimately it can become a thing. It can become, you know, a tagline that people actually start searching for as something grows in popularity. Think about this. I mean, I'll just give you a great example. Like, let's say 10 years ago, you were an artificial intelligence specialist. There are probably relatively few search terms around that because, like, who was using artificial intelligence 10 years ago? Very highly technical people. And now that's one of the biggest search terms in the world. So something that starts off as very niche can over time grow and grow and grow. And as SEO tends to be a longer term strategy, that plays very nicely.
That's great. That's great. So I was going to ask you for an example. So that's a beautiful example. And now, so for those people that are in those ultra niche fields, like I think the example we got last week was from Lily Stairs about patient advocacy. Now, a lot of times what I do when I'm looking for an SEO search term is go to Google or go to, I have Uber SEO, or you can go to Ahrefs or any one of those kind of platforms. How do you even know where to start if there's kind of no barometer to begin with? Do you just kind of pick the terms, or I guess where do you even start for something like that?
That's such a great question, Lauren. So I have a few tips on how to start with that. So take something like patient advocacy. One thing I would recommend is here are three things I think you can start with. Google that term and see what else comes up. Google is always
Yeah.
going to show you related terms, things people are asking about that term, all kinds of other related searches to that initial term. That may give you a lot of clues as to what people are actually searching for that are not that term but are related to that term.
Okay, cool.
So that's one good trick that I always recommend. Another great trick is I don't like to recommend stealing, but steal from your competitors in this case. Go ahead,
Yeah.
look at what your competitors are possibly ranking for on Google. Study their website, see how they're talking, what language they're using. Highly encourage you to do this. You might even want to Google their brand name and see what related searches come up. That may give you some thoughts on what more generic terms you can use. And then finally, talk to your audience. Like talk to your actual audience. Like find people that are your core audience, your core customer, and find out what are they searching for? What are they looking for? What information do they need in order for them to take the actions that you want them to take? And by finding out information, it may clue you into keywords that they are using that you wouldn't have thought of, but that kind of came up in the conversation. So
Yeah.
if a patient advocate is saying like, gosh, I've been looking for research on a particular treatment type, or where I can get treatments, or what kind of, just more information about this condition, or what kind of doctor am I looking for. There may be all kinds of things that come up that are more generic that you can start building your content around and your
Yeah.
website copy around.
Yeah, and I want to emphasize that if you've ever worked with me or want to work with me in the future, and it seems like I'm asking you crazy questions, or I'm like, hey, can I talk to a bunch of your customers? Who are your competitors? These are all the reasons why I'm asking that. So then Brian can take all of that information and help us find the correct keywords. So there is always kind of a reason behind why we're doing something, but sometimes I think people are like, oh, why do you need to know my competitor names? Why do you need to talk to my clients? There is a reason behind it, and it's all generally some sort of marketing or SEO strategy. So just to kind of, bring it all home.
Love that. There's definitely always a method to your what might look like madness, but definitely is not.
Exactly. Exactly. So what's our kind of first, the geography of SEO? So tell us a little bit about traditional, local, global.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite topics, actually. So no matter the size and scope or scale of your business, whether you're one person or an enterprise of thousands, whether you are doing business in one small town or all across the globe, SEO can help you. But depending on your market and your geography, your tactics and your strategy may be different. And that's why I often break out SEO into these three buckets of traditional, local, and global search. Traditional is kind of what people tend to think of with SEO, which is like you Google, what are the latest sneakers, and then like you'll get like a list of like 10 websites that have blog posts about sneakers, or you'll get like 10 brands that have websites about sneakers. And that's kind of the traditional SEO like result. That's what I would either call traditional generic search, something like that. And that is generally kind of when you're thinking about a national search for the most
Okay.
part. So if you rank number one in those traditional spots for 10 coolest sneakers right now, that means that probably most likely, no matter where in the country somebody is searching, that result is going to be the same if it's in the traditional number one spot. It's not it's not based on a locality. It's just based on a kind of a generic term. And it's the same for whether you're Googling from California to New York to Texas, whatever, it doesn't matter, because the hottest sneakers right now are just the hottest sneakers right now. And that is how those searches are going to come up. So if you're competing on a national level, that is most likely what you're concerned with. So for example, if you are a large biotechnology company and you're looking for donors, or you're looking for investors from all over the country, or you're marketing a drug all over the country, you're probably more concerned with national search or generic search or traditional search than some of these other areas.
Yep, okay. That makes sense.
However, local search is huge for either small businesses, anything from solopreneurs to, maybe you operate mostly in a city, a particular city, could be a big city or a small city. Also, even if you're a large company, but you have franchises or stores or small shops all over the place, each one of those nodes or stores or shops or franchises could have its own little SEO world. And that's like local. That. Yeah. So if you think about like your favorite fast food chain, right? Like they're going to be thinking about ranking for hamburgers overall nationally, but each of their individual stores is probably also thinking about ranking for hamburgers in Boston, hamburgers in Chicago, hamburgers in Levittown, New York, where I grew up. So that's where local can come into play, even for really big companies.
Now, so let's one thing that I admittedly don't do too many local things, because a lot of my clients are more, national or global type of companies. Sure. But sometimes I will always get the person that's like, hey, I have a dry cleaner and we service Boston, Wellesley, Dedham, Norwood, Westwood, Walpole. Can't we just stuff all those towns in the text? Can't we put those in white font so you can't actually read them, but Google can? Every once in a while, I'll get those questions. And obviously I know the answer is no, don't do that. But tell me why I'm saying no to that, because I do think that the white text trick is well known, and I also do see chains or local brick and mortar businesses that have every local town listed, and it's a little cringy. So tell us why not to do that, or a better way to do that.
Okay. So the reason not to do that, I love this conversation, by the way. The reason not to do that is that those are well-known tricks, and they are tricks, right? Because the reason they're tricks is because they go against Google's rules, essentially Google's guidelines, exactly. Which are not laws, but they are Google's rules of the game. They're like, if you are going to do it, if you're going to build a website and you want to rank on Google, you have to abide by the guidelines that we publish. You can go on their website and read through these, exactly. Or I'll do it for you so you don't have to. But the idea is that they say, they're trying to eliminate people that are trying to game the Google algorithm, game the system, right?
Exactly.
If you put text on your website, they want it to be for your users. They want your users to be able to read it. So if you're hiding keywords in the in the white color so they blend in, like, okay. But here's the truth. Here's the real truth. In 2003, well, no, they didn't exist yet. So that would have been for other search engines at that point. But 2005, 2006, that might have worked. Like, Google was not sophisticated enough in the beginning to deal with all of those tricks. People figured this stuff out real quick. SEOs like me, but except maybe not always playing by the rules, would use these tricks and it would actually work for a while. But over the years, Google has gotten incredibly good at recognizing these tricks and being able to filter them out of their algorithm. The best case scenario when they catch you doing it, and they will catch you, if not in the short term, then in the long term. The best case scenario is they just don't rank you, and they're just like, okay, well, this is just not quality, and we're not going to rank you. But if you're really like flagrantly going against their rules, they can actually take you out of their index altogether, so that you're essentially banned from Google. It's just not worth
That
playing the
sounds
company.
awful. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not
Um,
good. It's not good.
So how would you recommend if somebody is a brick and mortar and they do service, the
Uh-huh.
greater Boston area and they have about 10 towns,
Yeah.
how would they do that short of listing? Obviously, you're going to list, on like a contact or whatever, or
Mhm.
about page, but is that the only place they should do it? Or should they throw in some random towns throughout the page or throughout the website? What's the best way to do that? And you guys, this is helpful for me too, because like I said, I don't always do the kind of local brick and mortar. So this is I'm learning with you.
Yeah, so let's say you have 5 towns that you service, or even 10 towns, in the area or neighborhoods. I don't. I would even put it. You could probably put it right on your homepage if it makes sense with your copy, and just be like, "Hey, we work in this area. Our store is here, but we have customers that come from. Have a bulleted list. Just list them out, but don't try to
Yeah,
hide
that's
it.
what I was gonna.
Just be straightforward about it. Just be like, these are the neighborhoods that we tend to service, where our customers come from. And now there are two things that you can really do to help this effort. One is to create local based content. Create content that touches on things in your neighborhood, things in your city. Maybe your business is involved in events going on. You could write about that in towns, or maybe your business is a bakery, and you have certain types of desserts in your region that are really popular. Be like, here are the most popular desserts in X town or X city right now.
Oh, that's a
Create
good
content.
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, create content that touches on your local geography. That is absolutely above board and a great way to get those local keywords more and more on your website in a way that actually helps your users, and
Yeah,
gives
yeah.
them information that they could use. They might not know, that like what were those croissant donuts that were they like cronuts? What were they that were popular for a
Oh
while?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
They're
I
really
was
popular
gonna.
in your town again, so you write an article about it.
Yeah.
I don't. The other
uh,
thing, and this is super key. I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you,
oh no,
but
that's yeah. No, no, no. Go ahead.
um, okay, we've been talking all about your website, but when it comes to local search, something even more important than your website is your Google Business account. Your Google Business account is your local hub, even more than your website. It's basically just a simple Google account that you can open up for your business in your location. Please, please, please do this. If you have a local business, if you're competing in any city, town, anything like that, even sometimes if you have a national business, it still may pay to have the account
Yeah.
in your local area, just to have a presence there.
And
Um,
that's we worked on mine for that exact
I,
reason, because obviously I am a national, I don't really limit to Boston, but the
Mhm.
majority of my clients are here, so I might as
Yeah.
well. And this is so important, you guys, especially if you're a small business or an entrepreneur. Brian, shout out to the Bold Moves ladies, because we have all been bugging Brian for help with this. I would say that the Google business, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, is probably one of the biggest points of confusion for a small business owner, because I know it was mine.
Yeah, I think a lot of people just aren't even aware of it. And then there are a few different things in Google that kind of look like it that are not it. But the point is that it is a thing. You actually have to go and either create it yourself. Sometimes Google kind of creates them on its own. And then what you would do in that instance is claim it. So if Google has figured out that you're a business and creates a little like local like index for it, or entity, it would be called, it'll give you an option to claim it instead of creating it. Go do that. It gives you
Yeah,
control over it. Boy, we could probably do like
I
follow up
know.
on this.
On this, I know,
But
and
this
we're getting to the
so good.
last like 10 minutes or so. So I want to make sure we touch on some of the other topics that we have
Yeah.
here. Do you want to dovetail into either brand versus generic search or marketing channel diversification.
Yep.
Yeah, we already talked about competitor research, so I think that I feel good about that conversation, but I want to make sure we kind of
Yeah.
touch on everything.
Yeah, let's talk about brand building and brand versus generic search for a minute, because I think there are some who might think that, like, well, maybe you're a content creator, you're an influencer, you're a celebrity, you are, an advocate, I don't know, but you are you, and you think, well, there's no reason for me to worry about SEO. SEO is about looking for these like generic search terms like sneakers or shopping, handbags or shirts or, but I don't have that. 100% wrong. Google is still a place where people are going to go and search for information about you. And you want Google's results page about you to be optimized to bring you business, to make you look good, to do all of these things, manage your reputation. It's just a great place to build your personal brand or your business's brand. So a brand can be applied to either your personal brand or your business brand. Both can be important. Both can be really important places for you to focus your SEO efforts. And the way you do that in the like broadest sense is you create content on your website that relates to the words that you want to describe you on Google. So the things that you want to be thought of as. So if you want to be thought of as a marketer, you want to have keywords about I'm going to use you as an example, Lauren.
Yeah.
Lauren Perna marketer. If you want to be known as a writer, you want to be using Lauren Perna as a writer on your website. If you want to be known as movie star, if that is a new venture for you, then you could be writing about your celebrity appearances. But whatever it is, you want to be creating those keywords, those descriptors. You want them on your website to start sort of branding you, and you want to optimize around that. So it really is important, even if you're a solopreneur, influencer, content creator, or you're just building the brand for your company, and you want people. Let's say people are looking for reviews about you. You want to have some control over that, or if people are writing articles about you, you want the articles that come up to be So this kind of gets a little bit into PR and a little bit into reputation management. But the thing is you want the good stuff to be ranking.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And, as someone that is trying to build my personal brand on top of a business brand, it is helpful to kind of know those little nuances, because, you automatically think like, oh, well, I'm going to build my business on Google, not necessarily me. You think that your personal brand is built on social media platforms, which it absolutely is. But what do people do after they see you on social media? They go Google you, which is a great segue, I feel like, into our last kind of topic about marketing channel diversification and SEO, and talking about what happens if TikTok or Instagram or Google goes away. And this is something that Aday and I talked about a couple of weeks ago, about really not owning your social media platforms. And I think this is a beautiful continuation of that conversation, because I think it's just something even that I'm guilty of forgetting. It's so important to have that diversification. So tell us a little bit what you meant when you sent me these bullet points, and what you meant by marketing channel diversification and SEO.
Yeah, right. So this is another way in which I like to think of marketing, and especially SEO, as sort of like investing, and that is diversify your portfolio. And in this case, it is diversify your marketing channels, but also own your own marketing channels. And the thing is that when it comes to especially either Google or social media or any of these companies and platforms that you do not own, they can go away in an instant. They could be bought by somebody, let's say billionaire electric car maker, and then they could do anything with it. They could take it down. They could not take it down. They could rebrand it. You never know.
Just a random example, you
That
guys.
was
Not
just like
not
off the
even,
top of
yeah,
my head.
totally random.
Or let's say another social media platform was, I don't know, owned by a foreign government that didn't always have the United States' best interest at hand. The United States government might pass a law that says that one has to go away or sell. Anyway, the
Yeah.
point is that if you don't own the platform, it can go away. And if your
Yeah.
entire business is built on that platform, you are at risk of losing your entire business if the channel disappears. You don't want to put yourself at risk that way. So what I really recommend is, yes, use SEO, build your audience on Google. It's a great place to build traffic. It's a great place to get leads. It's a great place to get customers, but make sure you are capturing as much of that audience as you can. Get them on your mailing list, get them on your text message list, your SMS, get those names, do it with permission, of course, always with permission. Let them know, but get them to sign up, give them incentives, get them in your database. You want those emails and those customers to be yours. Similarly, you do own your website. You don't own Google, but you do own your website. And that is why it is so important to have your website and to make it, I still think, the center of your internet presence. Even if you're a TikToker or an Instagrammer.
Or LinkedIn.
Or
So
LinkedIn.
one question I have is, so we've been talking about Google a ton. What
Yeah.
about the other search engines? People use DuckDuckGo, which is supposedly safer than Google. People, oh my God, what's the other one? That's awful. I don't even know. I'm a
I think
Google
you
girl
just
at heart.
I think you just proved the point, Lauren, which is that yeah, a
Sorry.
few people are using other search engines, but the truth is that we're still in an era where 90% plus of your audience is searching on Google. Now, that does not mean that there aren't certain
What?
niches, or maybe if your audience skews a little older, maybe they're using Bing a little bit more.
Bing.
Yeah,
The
that's the
one.
one. But at the end
Sorry.
of the day, truthfully, SEO and Google are sort of synonymous. Although, keep in mind a few other things. World's second biggest search engine, I believe, still is YouTube.
Oh,
So video SEO is a thing there. And as you know, Lauren, every social media platform also has a search engine, including LinkedIn, including TikTok, where all the kids are now. Um,
exactly.
More and more searches are happening on platforms like TikTok, especially. So that is something else to keep in mind. But in general, when we're talking about SEO specifically, and we're not talking about social media, it's 90% Google. And if your focus is on video, then maybe YouTube and Bing and DuckDuckGo exist.
And
And
and there's one with a lion icon.
I
I'm
believe
not
you.
familiar. I don't know. Someone said that in the chat. I can't. It just says LinkedIn user. I feel like it might be Melissa. Sorry. We can't always see the names of who's commenting on the back end of the streaming. But apparently there's one with a lion icon. I'm not even familiar. Clearly, I couldn't even remember Bing, you guys. So yeah.
There are also a few like a few other countries have major search engines. So
Oh,
like
maybe yes. That's true. That's true. Yeah.
I don't know as much about like, I know Russia has one. I know China has one that are kind of their own proprietary. I know very little bit about that. There are definitely people that are better to speak to that. But again, in the United States and for most like commercial businesses, in Europe, in the United
Google. Yeah.
States, Latin America, you're really focusing on Google.
So this has been awesome, Brian. You've been so helpful. I've learned so much, and a lot of what you've talked about too has validated a lot of what I do. In my mind, I feel like, oh wow, okay, so everything I'm doing is right, and hopefully that's the case for you that's listening. That either you learn something or you feel validated in the processes and procedures you're using, because it's not always easy. It's not SEO is very tricky. But we're going to finalize the conversation next week. And I am so excited because in a very first for Level Up with Lauren on LinkedIn Live, we have another guest. So we're going to have three of us, a conversation with another Brian, actually. Brian Kelm is joining us. Brian Reiser. Why don't you tell us a little bit about who you're bringing on the show tomorrow, and what you next week, and what you guys are talking about?
Yeah, so we're going to bring Brian Kem on. Brian is somebody who I have worked with in the past on SEO. He is a great SEO in his own right. He also has an incredibly strong finance background. I learned a lot about investing from him and about the stock market from him. He's an expert on that too. And why this conversation is so perfect for him is because he has been following artificial intelligence for a very long time. In our conversation next week, it's going to be all about is SEO still important, and what does artificial intelligence do to the SEO industry, and where should you be focusing your SEO attention in the future?
I love it.
He's just so well positioned to speak on this, so I'm really excited.
Oh, I'm so excited. Well, thank you, Brian, so much. This has been awesome. I have learned a lot. These guys have learned a lot. We will see you next time for our third and final session on SEO. And the other good news is that because this series is becoming so popular and I've gotten a lot of requests, we have a form now. So if you are an expert on anything marketing or writing or comms related and you want to be in the hot spot with me, I would love to have you. We will make sure that the form is posted on all of our platforms. And it has been real, guys. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next week.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Lauren.
Bye, guys.